We're good.
Process, preparation, and performance. JR, we're climbing the podcast totals now. We're getting towards that 30 list. We have a lot of guests, but none more exciting for me tonight than the head coach of the Quincy University Hawks. I'm sporting my little Quincy travel sweatshirt that I wore when I played there way back in the early to mid-90s.
I just saw the number. Were you a center? That's a center number, man. You ain't no linebacker.
I was middle linebacker and backup punter. I want you to know.
I have heard the rumor.
Backup punter.
I have heard the rumor.
I could still kick the rock
very often.
You don't. And there's plenty of stories I could tell about it, but none that anybody is interested in, to be honest with you. JR, let's talk about a little current events before we dive into this today. Missouri has decided that your school district can decide to play fall sports in the spring.
Yep.
Coach's football conference, Coach Bass's football conference has already moved to the spring, but Missouri has said we will have 2 football seasons. You could participate in one or the other. Now, softball has been doing this for a while, right? In Missouri, I think softball has a spring and a fall.
Depends on the level of the school, as does baseball. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So they have 2 with that, but now they've added higher risk, high contact sports, and there are already a number of schools jumping on board to do it. But here's what's interesting, JR. September 11th, 9/11, which I don't know that we should have picked that date. There's other more important stuff that go on in the world on that date. But they've picked that date as the day you have to declare if you want to play your fall sport in the spring. So you could literally play 2 to 3 football games, go, you know what, not for us. We're going to come on over to the spring. What do you think about that, JR? You're a baseball guy.
Yeah, we kind of discussed this a little last time. To me, pick one. It's if the reason you're doing it is because you lost 2 or 3 in a row, I'd start to question that a little bit, but I don't know how you're ever going to be able to validate that. Now if you got a COVID outbreak, hey, I get it. It's just, I don't know. Like I said last time, there's no good decision. It's just, It is what it is. So
there's no blueprint for what we're doing. There's no, it's trying to get everybody their season if they can. So I applaud the state for that. It'll be interesting to see how it turns around. It'll be interesting with the overlap and everything. But let's dive into Quincy, Illinois, because JR, you know this. Coach doesn't know this. I met my wife at Quincy.
Yes, you did.
I met her there.
You married up.
I did marry up, way up, way higher than I deserve. Way higher. Okay. Also renewed my faith in Christ, and I found that because of her. So a lot of good things came out of Quincy. I still talk to some of my professors there, to be honest with you. One of them does not do technology, so he only writes letters. Even though I might email him, then he sends me a letter back to the email or something like that. So it's kind of crazy, but very nice. But Coach Bass, thank you for being here. Quite the resume. You've been all over, and I'm going to kick this thing off, JR, because Coach was at Quincy, was named the interim for a while, and then became the head coach. So, Coach, one thing I want to know, and we're going to get into all things Quincy, Illinois here, because there's some good stuff going on there. But for me, how did that time as interim kind of shape you for being a head coach?
Well, it's funny. I've had a lot of people ask me that over the last few years, and even whenever I first got the job. And I know the first thing I think I said to everybody was, I'll be honest with you, I was going to do things the way we had set out to do things, whether it was interim or just the head coach in general. I think the biggest thing for me was, I think a lot of coaches get their first opportunity, and they get so caught up with wins and losses immediately that they don't lay the foundation correctly from a culture standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, and just how you want to go about dealing with your alums, dealing with the people in the administration, dealing with everyone. So for me, I wouldn't say I didn't act any different. It was exactly who I am to a T. And I know I said that to Coach Bell and numerous other people, that if this tag getting lifted is solely going to be strictly because of wins and losses, then you might as well not hire me right this second, because I'm not caving to who I am just to win some ball games immediately.
Tell us a little bit about Quincy. My sister-in-law is from Quincy.
Oh, wow.
Really?
So I know there is a blue bridge up there.
It's multiple colors depending on the nighttime.
Oh, okay.
Sort of thing.
Tell us about it a little bit.
Well, I know it's funny because one people also ask me all the time, why Quincy? And the one thing that I've told people numerous times is it's because of the people. I'm originally from North Carolina, and I've been here for going on 10 years. Both of my kids have been born here. Me and my wife have settled down here. We've got established roots here, and this is home. And I think that's one of the coolest things that can be said about this town as a whole, is it is extremely personal and personable, great people. They truly care about our young men more than just the football aspect of things. They want them to be successful. The town as a whole is very supportive in every which way imaginable you could possibly think of. And it really is a cool town to live in. I mean, there's about 50,000, a little bit more. There's plenty of things to do here. Probably the biggest difference for me in the Midwest and from where I was from the Southeast is there's a lot of towns Quincy size in a lot of pockets of North Carolina, but then there's another one right next to it. Whereas here, I mean, we're the big town to be all right within St. Louis and Springfield. So, I mean, there's a lot of commerce here, a lot of work here. And I think it really is the funniest thing I tell people all the time, that to have a town this size, when you're going down Broadway, which is the main street here, and you go, man, the traffic is just terrible. And you don't live in St. Louis or Chicago. It's kind of funny how that works out. So all in all, it's a great town. I love every bit of it. And the people here are awesome.
When we had my brother's wedding, we had it in Quincy, and it was downtown. I don't remember where it was, but I just remember it was very pretty downtown for a town that, you know, has been around for a long time. Because like you said, it's on the river to where you got a lot of jobs and there's a lot of commerce flies through there, you know, just daily. So when you look at kids and you're like, yeah, I think this is a Quincy guy, what is the number one, maybe number two, top three things that you're looking for this is a Quincy guy, we're going to go get this kid?
Toughness. I think anytime for us, whenever we watch a kid on film, and I know I'm an O lineman by trade and was an offensive coordinator before, so the one thing you want to see out of everybody is how tough are they mentally, physically, the works, because you're going to get tested in every way, shape, and form in college, from your time management skills to things being due on deadlines to anything else that's going on. You're going to have to do all those things from that standpoint. So, I mean, I definitely think that's number one. Number two for us is probably just going to be mentality, as far as that blue collar, roll your sleeves up, let's get to work type kids. So, I mean, I would say those are the two most important things. Excuse me,
Definitely.
I'm texting my wife because the computer is about to die and I've got to get a charger brought down here. So I'm listening. I didn't plan this
I love
very
it.
well.
Oh, that's all right. Don't worry about it. Quick story, JR. The chapel at Quincy University is amazingly beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
And on Sunday nights, Mass was at 9:00. Okay. That's when it used to be when I was there anyway. Sunday nights at 9:00. And the first time my wife, Amy, goes, hey, listen, come to Mass with me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. I grew up Catholic, which meant really nothing at the time. And she goes, come to Mass with me. I go to Mass, and this is a true story, JR. True story. I come back, and my mom, I'm talking to my mom the next day or something like that. And she goes, oh, how was it? I go, I think I walked into a cult. I'm not even sure what happened. I was stand up, kneel down. Everybody's chanting. I don't know what the hell was going on.
Sounds like something I'd say.
Yeah. Well, because I grew up Catholic, but it didn't mean I went to church as I was growing up. My grandmother, very, very Catholic. My dad went to the seminary for a little while. That's a total different story. Got kicked out. We don't have time for that on today's podcast. Okay. Got kicked out. But beautiful beautiful, beautiful place, man. I mean, people go back there, JR, routinely to get married there because of how nice it is. But
Wow.
The architecture of that chapel, being from the Southeast, I grew up Southern Baptist.
mhm,
Okay.
So I'd never been in a Catholic church in my entire life, really, until I got here. So I remember the first time I ever walked in that chapel, I was in awe of like
yeah,
architecturally just how beautiful that chapel is, and then getting the opportunity to meet the friars here on campus,
right.
and how just amazing people they are. Like there's been times where those men have taken some of our players under their wing if something happened and they couldn't get a flight out to leave at a certain time, and they let them stay in the friary for a few days if they couldn't stay with another coach.
Right.
So I
Wow.
mean, I could sit here and speak for days just on the Franciscan heritage here at Quincy University, and just what that means to people. And I think that's one of the big draws for me is how good of a human being they really are in that way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Franciscans are incredible. I mean, the chapel is called Saint Francis Solanus Chapel. At least according to my wife. Again, I'm married up. She knows all that. And a quick story about the friars, because the Franciscan friars, JR, and I'm going to tell you something else you don't know about me, JR. My
Uh-oh.
confirmation name is Francis because of Quincy University. So I picked that because of the friars and how cool they were, because I didn't get confirmed until right before I got married. But
See, that's where I get confused
yeah, go ahead.
because there's a lot of ceremony. There's a lot of things with the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
No offense to anybody Catholic, but
it's
I'm
okay.
just JR. I mean, I don't have any other. Well, there's been some people call me some names, but so I don't really understand the whole hierarchy and structure of it. But it's cool. Just hearing about it, it's cool.
Yeah, there's 7 sacraments. One of those is, there's all different ones, but
Huh.
when you get confirmed, you can choose the name of a saint, male or female, to go
Mhm.
along, and
Really?
different saints represent different things.
Hmm.
Okay, obviously Francis, we know about Francis. He loved everything, loved all creatures. Didn't want to harm anything.
That
Kinda-
wouldn't be my confirmation name,
No, it
unfortunately.
might not be yours. That's okay. But they had such an impact. I chose that. So I'm going to tell you a funny
Cool.
story about the Franciscans, especially Brother Tom Smith, who is there. He's not there anymore. He's moved all around, but we still keep in contact with him. One day, Brother Tom is talking to us. We're sophomores, juniors, something like that. And he goes, "You know why we have these 3 knots on our belt, which their belt is a rope, okay?"
Yep.
Okay.
And I go, "Okay, Brother Tom, obviously, no, I don't know because I'm learning." And he goes, "The 3 knots stand for this." And JR, you're going to love this. No class, no sass, no ass. That's what he said. That's what they stand for. He goes, if you want to really get down to it, that's what it means. No class, no sass, no ass.
He's got a good sense of humor. I'd
Yeah,
say
he
that.
was great. He was great. So
That's great.
I totally loved that. So,
That's great.
Coach, I was there a while back. 2 years ago, I was back at Quincy, and it's changed tremendously from when I was there. Obviously, lots of dollars infused for renovations, upgrades, all that stuff. What improvements are still going on? Because I know there's some stuff that's happened with the football program specifically that prospective student athletes need to know about.
Well, I mean, the craziest thing is probably just the rundowns of things that have happened since I've gotten here. I know in my 9 years here, we completely renovated the weight room one time. We built a $4+ million football facility that has a jumbotron that is entirely too big. But the kids
No.
Oh, I
Can't be
mean,
too
don't get
big.
me. It's not. Trust me. It's not too big, but it's massive. I mean, and it's really cool. It definitely makes our kids very proud of where they're at. And I mean, now that in the last 3 years, we actually just finished renovating our locker room. We're getting ready to do pictures and everything for that thing. It's got turf in it. It's got a Pepsi fridge with protein. It's got a Gatorade fountain in it. It's got an 82-inch TV,
All
man,
right.
bean bags, there are lights underneath the lockers itself. And we've actually built a mini putt course in there as well. Well, the crazy thing about the locker room thing is us as coaches did all the work.
Oh, wow.
So that saved a ton of money for us to be able to do that. So, I mean, that's been huge over the summer. As soon as we kind of got the ball almost completely done with that one, we moved the weight room to the Hawks Hangout, the old Hawks Hangout building, and we demolished a wall in there. We're getting ready to pretty much go from about a 4,000 square foot area to probably about a 6,500 square foot area. That's going to be, we're about to drop another $100,000 in there. We're going to have 15 to 20 racks. We're going to have everything you can think of in there from that standpoint. And then I know my first year, whenever I first took the head coach job, we actually moved our offices below the cafeteria. And we've had a lot of help as well with that one, with getting graphics on the wall, things for our coaches' offices. We also put a players' lounge down there with TV, couches.
Wow.
There's a computer area for a study hall area for our guys that we've had all of our alums kick in to help with that as well. And I mean, you look at uniforms. I mean, we bought brand new uniforms the last 3 years. We've got 4 different jerseys, 4 different pairs of pants. I'm an O-lineman by heart. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm terrible. But I know our kids do. They love it. They think it's the coolest thing on the planet. So I know for us now, we're in the middle of trying to raise money to put a new facility across the street from our stadium right now to get a brand new weight room and locker room there. So, I mean, right in the middle of trying to get all that accomplished, and hopefully we do in soon future. And like I said, I definitely think anytime you're a young man and you get a chance to go on campus and you can see construction being taken place in some way, shape, and form on campus, you see a school that's trying to take steps forward to get better.
I still have a year of eligibility.
Sweet. We need a punter.
Hey, listen.
I'm not kidding. Ours graduated.
Get him up there.
We'll sign you right now.
I'm telling you, I still have a year, and because, and JR, I'm just going to flow right in. The NCAA is giving people more eligibility. I have a year, which really means I should have 2 years. So I'm thinking, we could work something out, Coach. I mean,
He could be your team doctor as well. So it's like a 2 for 1.
Yeah, foot and ankle, and I'll go up there kick.
Up here. Only thing you have to do is I ask that you show up on Fridays for our special teams walkthrough extended period, and then kick on Saturdays. We're game. Sign them up.
Hey, JR,
I want to see your photo shoot if you go up there, because that's a big thing with kids. Hey,
you're laughing about that. That was one of the things whenever we redid our locker room that we had to change. We put the light bars underneath the thing, so when you turn all the lights off, we flip the lights on the light bars. It's like this bright yellow that kicks off the turf.
Wow.
So really cool. And then we bought these huge banners and like these lights to go behind the helmets and behind the jerseys hanging up, so that when you turn all of it off, you turn the other stuff on, the jerseys are glowing and everything else. And then and this was, by the way, some of this was my idea. Most of this is I've gotten really good at listening to people that are smarter than me. So put people in the right place, and that helps big time. And then the last thing was they bought a big piece of plexiglass and made a stand. So when kids come on a visit, they're literally going to have a smoke machine. They're going to have uniforms on. Or have all these lights. It's going like a disco in this thing. And then they're going to walk up. You can tell I'm getting older. I use the word disco. These kids won't even know what that is.
Probably not. Probably not.
Expo, they're going to sign their name on this board so that we can transpose it. I think's the word they told me onto a signing day graphics. So
awesome.
Nice. There's a lot of cool stuff we're doing from that standpoint, because you're right. I mean, kids love it, and you got to get those pictures right, because it shows a lot of people exactly what you can do.
How much have you seen it change, like from when you started in college to now, to where that is a focus?
Oh, drastic. I know if you go back, see, I'm 36. I'll be 37 in October, even though this gray hair makes me look way older. My daughter tells me all the time. Our freshman the other day asked me if I was 50, so that made me feel really good about myself.
That's all right. Wisdom. Wisdom.
Yes, exactly.
Wisdom.
Let's keep it that way. Let them think I'm old. That way, if I beat them in anything, they're going to think they got beat by an old man. It's changed a ton. I know since I've been here, it's changed drastic. And since I've been at Missouri Southern, it's been nuts. And I can just think about whenever I played football. I mean, my freshman year of college was 2001 and graduated in 2005. And it was, we were still doing VHS and DVDs, like to get film out. I mean, just from a film standpoint on Huddle now, like you click a button and you can watch anybody in the country.
Right.
And now you start talking about bringing kids on recruiting visits, from using jumbotrons to make huge graphics to, we literally have a graphic that we try to send out to our top players every single week. So we're making a new graphic that we'll send out this next week, and
Cool.
It's an ongoing thing. We spent last week with all of our freshmen here in town when they were here for orientation. We spent 30 minutes with each one of them doing things to make gifts, other graphics in their uniforms, all this stuff. And we got to do our upperclassmen next because it's stuff they won't. I mean, and it's cool, but I mean, it's a lot. People don't realize how much that has single-handedly changed. There are a ton of universities now and athletic departments that have departments completely focused and driven on that one topic.
Yeah, they do. How is this changing for you though, Coach? Because I've talked to one guy at a D1 school, and he said they're almost going to shut down their recruiting because so many kids are getting an extra year. What is this extra year doing for you guys?
Well, we only had 7 seniors coming in this year.
Okay.
So we're a pretty young football team. And what I tell people about this extra year, it's all well and good in theory. And it is good because the kids have the option to take it. But I mean, if you're thinking about a kid that, let's say he's this was his 5th year, does the kid really want to come back for a 6th football season? I would never tell a kid no, but like at some point in time, I mean, Max Snell probably our best offensive lineman right now is a 5th year senior currently. And with everything going on, he could come back next fall. Well, I'll give those kids that option if that's what they want, because I'll never tell a kid no. But at some point in time, they've got to start their life. And to be in school for now 5 years is pretty high, because you think in most sports don't redshirt.
Right.
Well, most of football does redshirt. So you're not talking about going from a 4th year to a 5th year. You're talking about going from a 5th year to a 6th year for a lot of times. So I would go on a limb to say for people like us and maybe even other smaller schools, I would say those kids that didn't get redshirted, it'll probably give you a year back on them. But it'll probably be 50-50 on whether or not it affects those 5th year guys. But as far as how it's actually going to affect our recruiting, who knows? We're going full steam ahead, no different than we normally would. Going out with the money we planned on going out with. And I think the biggest thing for us is going to be seeing how everything affects it, because usually in recruiting, you go from August to December, and as bad as I tell it, there are always going to be kids that leave. There's no way around that. Retention is never perfect at any university and any football program in the country. It's just not. Mm-hmm. And then you look into the fact that now you're recruiting really without knowing what that retention is going to look like. And now you're looking at the fact that you don't know when signing day is necessarily going to be. Like, I could see them moving it to all of us signing in December, which they may not. They could leave it in February. I mean, I just think there's just so many unknowns right now to what's going to happen. I mean, I think about the poor kids in Illinois where we're at right now. All the states around us in high school football are playing, and they're sitting at home. And you want to talk about hurting recruiting for those kids. There are a ton of those young men that from their junior year to their senior year was going to be a lot of growth that were going to help them get a ton of offers. Mm-hmm. And now those kids aren't going to get those same things, because they're going to have to go visit. They're going to have to commit somewhere before they ever play their football season of senior year, because they're not going to play here until February 15th, and we sign on the first Wednesday in February. So, I mean, it's going to affect those kids, I think, in Illinois and those states that aren't playing a lot more than it will those other kids per se.
Yeah, I can see that. You know, to talk about, JR, the timing, I can tell you that when I was a senior, And I started playing when I was a freshman. I was fortunate enough that I did well enough. John Morris was the D coordinator. He went on to start the program in Hallsville, and he's since passed away, God rest his soul. But he was a great guy to me. I know some people struggled, but I thought he was amazing. Anyway, I was fortunate enough that I got to play some special teams. Also got to play a little inside backer when I was a freshman. And I'll tell you, by the time I was a senior, JR, I was ready to go.
Yeah.
Like I was like, hey man, I got stuff I got to do. This was step A and B. Step C, D, and E are like here. I need to go, because I remember clearly walking out of the cafeteria one day. The house used to be called Out of Bounds. It was a house right next to the cafeteria, Coach.
The $1 million house.
Yes, yes. So it was called Out of Bounds, and they were having a party. There was a bunch of freshmen at this party. I was walking by. I looked over and I was like, all those people look way too young for me. It's time for me to go. And so a fifth year, I mean, at that point in time, I would have been like, no, I'm going to med school. I'm not staying here. So I completely understand, Coach.
Well, I mean, I know we had the quarterback we had last year, Andrew Rund. That was a senior, had a great season for us. When he came in as a true freshman, he was like, Coach, you guys can redshirt me if you want to, but I'm leaving in 4 years. He going to UMKC Dental School starting now. So, I mean, he had a plan. He knew what he was going to do. So, I mean, now you're talking about for a kid like him, hey, but now we want you to wait a year and a half longer.
Right.
It's going to be tough. But, I mean, it'll depend. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So you guys got pushed to spring.
Mm-hmm.
How does that change your calendar? What'd you do? What can you do in the fall? How's that look for you guys?
Well, I wish if someone has a head coach's pandemic or dummy book, if they don't have one, they need to start one, because I could have used it. With all the stuff that was going on and you're not really knowing exactly from day to day. I mean, there was a point in time early in March when all this happened that we're like, there's no way football is going to get pushed. Physically impossible. To, as we kept moving on and hearing, we're going to go down to 10 games. Well, then all of a sudden it comes down and it's like, all right, well, it sounds like we may only play conference only. And then all of a sudden, kids are about to come back, and probably 7 to 10 days before we get back is when they drop the bombshell. And the thing that just makes me kind of upset about it is I wish NCAA would just make the decision. Like, I think they put these stipulations on people of, you got to test so often here, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. And don't get me wrong, the health and safety of these kids come first every single waking second. But you're the governing body for all of us. And I don't like the fact that you've got some schools that are going to play this fall and some that aren't. And I mean, there's some schools that I read today, one of the schools in the Lone Star Conference, I believe West Texas A&M, unless I've got this wrong, their conference decided not to play, but they're playing anyway. So there's a lot of schools that I've heard possibly taking that route and deciding what they want to do in their own way. And I just wish they'd make a decision. Let's just keep it together, because what they don't realize is they're negatively affecting these kids. The heck with me, the heck with any of us coaches. Like, you're hurting the kids. And whenever I think they make decisions that are taking the coward's way out, kind of, or just bad decision making and putting it on us, like, I'm not a fan of it. Let's all stand together and say, you know what? For the health and safety of these young men, we're not playing. I can get behind that all day long. I never want to put our kids in harm's way. But as far as how it affected us, sorry, I got on a soapbox for a minute. I was a little upset about that one. I would say the biggest thing for us is first finding out if we were going to be able to have our typical off season, like a spring. We are going to be able to have our 15 practices. We start September 25th. And we're actually going to get done hopefully on Halloween. We're going to try to do something on that day for our kids. Since you got to wear masks anyway, what better day to end it on than a day that everybody can come wearing a mask?
Yeah, man. I
It'll be
like it.
fun.
I like it. I like
So
it.
outside of that, right now we're going to be lifting, running. All the COVID protocols they're a lot. I mean, they are. But I tell our kids all the time. I mean, if you want an opportunity to play football, there's going to be things you're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to sacrifice not going out. You're going to have to sacrifice wearing a mask. I know when you don't want to wear one, you're going to have to sacrifice some of the things that we're asking you to do as far as reporting to our trainers in the mornings and getting wristbands to make sure you're cleared. And I mean, there's just so many different things I think that are going to affect them. But the other thing I told our coaches is we're going to find out who loves football and who doesn't. And I think that's huge for us. So sorry I rambled a little bit, but
No,
that would
that's
be
not
it.
a ramble. It's not a ramble because it's truth, right?
Yeah.
JR, continuing theme for the last 2 or 3 episodes is somebody make a decision, right?
Yeah, it definitely,
Somebody,
that's been a theme.
it's been a theme. And truthfully, coach, this is like, and I'll piggyback your soapbox. If you were the head coach and you were like, maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that, I don't know. Let's see what the linebacker coach wants to do. Let's see what the O-line coach wants to do. Well, maybe the O-line wants to practice on Tuesdays. No, Matt, you couldn't do that. That would be chaos. So now you have the top level authority, like just make the decisions, right? So the true statement is this, JR. Direction comes from the top down. Revolution comes from the bottom up.
Uh-oh.
And you got to make a decision. Otherwise, you're just going to get people revolting and going and doing their own things and doing whatever. People are asking for the decision. So just make it. Sorry, coach. I piggybacked on you. That's just me. That's my own personal beliefs. JR probably doesn't share them. He's got some other ties that he's got to be nice about. I don't have to be. So it's okay.
I think we lost him.
Oh, we might have lost him, but that's all right. We'll get back to him in just a minute. Jared, this is interesting to me. And when he gets back, we'll talk about it. This is interesting to me because if you don't make a decision, how do you teach your kids moving forward to make something important, to make an important decision somehow, some way? I don't know how you do that.
Well, we kind of talked about it. I mean, I don't care what the decision is, just make it,
Yeah.
and it seems like, before hopefully coach can reconnect here, but, before we got disconnected, I was going to say, I read an article the other day that said, well, apparently you can't catch COVID in the SEC, and it's like, okay, I kind of see your argument there, but it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of schools that are back in school now. I mean, my stepson's back in school down in Louisiana, and they're doing in-seat. Here he is. He's back.
Yeah, I got him.
Okay. We got him.
You're good, coach.
Okay. Hey.
Oh, that's okay. I was just
That's all
jumping
good.
on my soapbox. I was just
I
jumping on my
missed it.
soapbox.
All of a sudden, you started going, and then everyone froze, and I'm going,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
of all people, the technologically uninclined person is the one that's going to get kicked off.
Oh, no, that's okay. It was just, I was agreeing with you that somebody should make a decision. If you don't, it's like the head coach saying, well, let's see what somebody else wants to do. Let's see what somebody else wants to do. Let's ask somebody who's not even involved in the program how they think we should practice. And eventually, it's the direction that you need in order to teach your kids how to make decisions as they get out of college and have to make these decisions, right?
Well, the bad thing for me was, if you look at the high school breakdown, I think there's only 13 states in the United States not playing high school football. So explain to me, when resources are the thing that would be able to save these kids and keep them from getting it, in my opinion, why the universities with more resources, not that we're Alabama, but we do have more resources to help than high school does.
Right.
How it's not safer for us to play than it is high schools.
Right.
So I
have no idea.
That's the baffling thing for me a little bit too.
It's going to be interesting to me to see, because Missouri's going to kick off here Friday, is how long will it go? And I hope it goes the whole season, but I think at least we'll get some indication here, I'd say within a couple of weeks of what the heck is going to go on. And you mentioned huddle, just the fact that film is instantaneous now. You know, you're not sitting there with the VHS or the beta or the old 8mm or anything like that. You know, and so I'm assuming you guys will probably be able to actually get out a little more, maybe watch some high school games. And when you're there and you're watching, say you go to watch a particular kid, but then there's just some dude on the field and you're like, man, I like that kid. What would make somebody stand out if you guys are in the crowd watching a game?
Well, usually when we go, I mean, you're always going to look at somebody specifically. We try to always, for us, when we go, we're trying to put two teams against each other that may have a couple kids we want to look at for each team. But for me, if we're going to say go look at two kids, one on each team, I really don't want to see the kid that we're coming there play. As crazy as that sounds,
Okay.
because we're going to get his film. It's all the other things other than the playing that I specifically like to watch. I mean, yeah, you're going to see if the kid can play or not, but I want to see how he deals with his teammates. I want to see how coachable he is on the sidelines. I want to see how the kid carries himself. I want to see how much leadership intangibles he carries and how he can pull his teammates along and do those things, because those are the things you can't see spliced together on huddle on a highlight film. The only other thing from a playing standpoint that's nice to see is you get to see the highs and the lows. Anybody can put together a highlight film that looks good. The good thing about going to watch a game from a playing perspective is to see how consistent they are. But I mean, it always happens. It happens when we're watching film in the spring. We'll put on a kid and we'll be watching something, and all of a sudden some creature will come streaking by, and you'll just like, who is number 2?
Who's
And
that guy?
that happens all the time. Like, I guarantee you, most of the time when we go to the game, I know last year there was a game me and Coach Kelly went to in St. Louis area, and we went to go watch one kid from another team, and by the time we left, I fell in love with the quarterback for the other team. And that happens all the time. And those leadership intangibles and seeing how they handle themselves and things of that sort are things that you can't see in any way, shape, and form ever.
So you've watched film for a long time, and that's kind of what I love to do. I love to break down film. So I've got a real specific question for you here.
Mm-hmm.
One of the hardest things that I have, I'd say, just trouble with is gauging speed on film. And I'll tell you a quick story here. The fastest dude I have ever seen on film, there was a kid from Bishop Gorman out in Las Vegas, and Rockbridge flew out there to play him. And we're watching the game, breaking it down, and they give the ball to the tailback, and there was a fullback in front of him. And the fullback turns around, looks back, and says, oh, he's got the ball. So the tailback passes him. The fullback outran him after that kid had about a 10-yard start. And I'm like, yeah, that guy's fast. Like, other than timing a flying 40, I mean, you could just sit there and go, that dude can roll. So how do you gauge speed on film?
It's not an easy one, because unfortunately kids are getting so good technology wise. All the time, there'll be times all of a sudden you'll see something in a film that's sped up and you can tell.
Good point.
And the reason you'll tell it's sped up is because you'll watch an offensive lineman look like he's running a 4.740, and you'll be like, yeah, something's up here. I know something's not right. When it comes to straight speed, I don't really get too wrapped up in it, because I'll be honest with you, not much of football is played in a straight line. Most of it's played laterally and have to make cuts to accelerate. So acceleration for me is what I look at more. And to get true gauge of speed, I want kids at a camp. I want to be able to see them in person. So if we got a kid who we think, let's say we did a flying 40 and we timed him at a 4.4 something because he was already at full speed, I'll then go watch him in pregame, and we'll watch him run and cut and see if he's a 4.6 kid, 4.65 kid. We're not Alabama, so I'm not worried about just straight up 4.3s or anything like that. The kid's either fast enough to get the job done or he's not. And I know we had a receiver here a few years ago named Eric Poindexter. Eric had 75, 80 catches for like 1,700 yards and 16 touchdowns his senior year. and he
Wow.
couldn't run any faster than a 4.85 40, but no one could cover him, period.
Hmm.
My personal opinion is having a strength background too is I think 40s are overrated. Speed matters, don't get me wrong, but there's a difference between track speed and football speed. And I think sometimes people get too caught up in 40. So I'd say on film, it's tough. You can get a gauge, but you need to see it in person to truly get a really good idea of how fast someone really is.
Yeah, I tackled a lot of people, JR. I mean, I
want to see
I
the
was
film. I got to
I
see
was
it.
up there. You know what? You mentioned it already. I have a VHS tape of it.
Okay.
But I don't. I tackle a lot of people, and if I was running 40 yards to get you, it meant somebody else missed a tackle. So, because I was 5 yards away from the LOS, so if you're coming up, I got to go 5 yards, and I got to hit you as hard as I can and effectively, right? So me running a 40 didn't matter. Now, with that being said, JR, there's a couple of things that all guys remember. They remember their ACT score, they remember their 40 time, and they remembered how much they benched. Right.
They remember what they think their 40 time was.
Right. Well, okay. So here's another quick story about Quincy University. I took gym. No, literally, I took gym class one semester. I think I was a junior, and the lady's name teaching the gym class was Miss Bergman. Miss Bergman was about 5 foot maybe, but she had calves that were like this big. Okay. And our whole class was nothing but running. And she would run, twirling this ribbon and jumping around and having a good time. I lost like 20 pounds during this gym class. Okay. But at the end of that gym class, I was fast, man. I could run a 40, and I know exactly what the time is, and you'll never believe it, but I tell my kids all the time. I was like, dude, I ran 4.67 at the end of Miss Bergman's gym class. So I recommend, if she's still there, which no, she's not. If she's still there, you should take her class because your ass going to get fast. But people always remember that. But I agree with you, Coach. There's speed does kill, and if your position requires you to do something, it's great. But it doesn't mean you got to do it at 4.5. It means you got to be able to get away from people. Yep. You got to be able to keep the ball after you do get hit, and you got to be able to move the sticks. So I want to know about your coaching staff. So here's a guy who's been at QU. You were line coach, OC, interim head coach, head coach. You got to have a bunch of guys around you that just love being there. They want to be there. And I remember something Bobby Bowden once said. He goes, if you don't love college football, don't get into college football, because it ain't everything you think it is. It ain't just Saturday. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So tell us about your staff.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head first. I think there's a lot of people think they want to be a college football coach, and they don't really understand the time commitment in any way, shape, and form. And at this level, which is different than say Division I coached high school ball for 6 years before I ever went to college in North Carolina, and loved every second of it. But there's still a lot of high school job things that we have to do at the size of this, whether you're talking about laundry for game uniforms, we at one point in time, we're still having to paint the field before we got turf. And I mean, there were a ton of things we got to do. So, I mean, redoing a locker room. I mean, there's a lot of things I think you have to do at a smaller level here to be able to be successful. But I mean, our coaching staff's awesome. I'm the old guy at 36.
Wow.
Coach Kelly, our defensive coordinator, Mr. has done everything as of right now. He has been here actually a semester longer than me. Sean, whenever he first got here, he had just got done graduating and playing at McKendree University in Lebanon, Illinois, in our conference. He was a GA when I first got here. Then he moved up to a restricted role after his GA. Then he moved into a full-time role. And then when I got the head coaching job, he moved into our DC role. And then whenever another coach left, he moved in to be the associate head coach. So he literally has been the recruiting coordinator, equipment guy, film guy. Like, there's nothing that Sean hasn't done. And I'll be honest with you, he makes my job so much easier. It's unbelievable because he He's someone I completely 100% trust in every way, shape, and form. He is a phenomenal human being. He's great with our kids. Not only is he a good coach, but he teaches them at a very high level, and he's good to them. And he makes it much easier from that standpoint. Sticking with the defensive side, Mitch Lepke is our recruiting coordinator, and he also coaches our corners. He has been here. This is actually his second stint here. He was a GA for 2 years. When he graduated, he ended up working his way up to working at Wyoming for Coach Bowl, and then got a chance to come back here as a full-time guy. Him and his wife are getting ready to have their first child here in November, so very, very excited for those two.
Congratulations.
And recruit, he's the guru behind the graphics. Like, those are all, like, everything we do from that standpoint, the ideas and things, is all on him. So a lot of that recruiting stuff that we do to, like, get the kids excited about a lot of things, he's really good with it. Continue on defense, we've got two other guys, GA Aaron Doan, who also is our strength and conditioning coordinator. He does a phenomenal job. He is great in the weight room. He's just been out of college playing for about 3 years now. And I can't say enough good things. You give him a job and he gets it done, and he gets it done well and quickly. And then Michael Gould is going to be our linebackers coach next year. And he's one of those guys that you literally look at him and you're like, hey, look, I need you to do this. Okay. Rolls up the sleeves and gets to work. And you can't have enough guys like that. Offensively, I am going back to calling the plays next year. However, I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have two full-time guys on our side of the ball, and the other guys as well that are going to give me the ability to be able to do that as a head coach. Caleb Bogard played at Central Methodist.
Oh, wait a second. Hold on. No, he played at California, JR.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. He played at California at high school.
Played at California high school, JR. So
Okay.
I actually coached against him. So I am the oldest guy in the room right now because, Coach, I'm 45, about to be 46. I don't know if it's okay to have a punter who's a decade older than you, but we could get to that. It's okay. But, no, go ahead, Coach. California. I got it.
So he played ball at California High School in Missouri, and then he went to CMU. And then when he got done with that, he was at Missouri State. Actually went to Ohio State as a special teams intern restricted guy there.
Wow.
And then went to was at Southwest Baptist last year. And he is sharp is the understatement of the millennium. This dude he gets it. He's good with the kids. He's extremely intelligent. He's very well spoken, way better than me. He's an amazing person that I think is going to do great things with our quarterbacks. And I've seen in a small amount of time just how much he can do with those guys. Micah Johnson is now going to be our wide receivers coach. Micah is been around the block a lot from a coaching standpoint. He is also the same age as me, so I got to take it back. I think I got Micah by a month. So it's nice to have another guy there that is in his 30s at least. But he played at South Dakota State, was an All-American receiver, played for the Atlanta Falcons, played for the Cincinnati Bengals, played for the San Francisco 49ers.
Wow.
And he's been coaching all over the place. And he is, not only is he a good receiver, dude with a 3.9 GPA at South Dakota State and biochem or something like that. So, like, not only is he a great football coach, but he's way smarter than any of us, probably combined, and does a great job with our wideouts. Craig Kraufemel is going to be working with our tight ends. He's our equipment guy, and he spearheaded the locker room. To be honest with you, if it wouldn't have been for him, we couldn't have got it done. I put a lot on that guy because he rolls up his sleeves just like Coach Gould does, and just gets to work and gets things done, and is an amazing person. And then we have Mike Sauce, who is helping with the offensive line. That is going to be in his second semester here. That does a great job. And then Gerald King is the new guy. He's going to be our running backs GA. And so far he has done a great job. And he's one of those guys that I think he's sitting there soaking everything in right now and just kind of figuring out how to go about doing everything. But all in all, really happy with our staff. Those guys are awesome. They make it much easier to be able to do what we do and give me the ability to, like I said, go back and call the offense. It's not necessarily something that I saw happening, but we lost our coordinator 2 years ago. And then last year, Keith left Bearfield left to go to UL Lafayette. So he went Division I, and then promoted our wide receivers coach. And then he turned around and got a job at Grand Valley State. So, I mean, I told our athletic director, I guess I got to stop hiring really good football coaches because I just lose them all to better places. So he said, no, let's just not do that. But they're doing a good job.
So, Coach, I've got one last one for you here, and I want to talk a little more about the recruiting piece because, you know, we've been really fortunate here at Jeff City, you know, with the baseball program, been a part of football, and more specifically the baseball is more involved with it, where coaches would ask us, what is your opinion of the kid? And so my question is, what is more important? Do you think it's the coach recommendation, or does it just play a part, or is it best to get the kid on campus, go one-on-one with them? Because I went through the recruiting stuff of baseball with my stepson, who's a pretty darn good player. And it kind of, I'm pretty analytical. And I thought, you know, it really just comes down to,
That's
it's really one person's
JR.
opinion. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
It's just one person's opinion, you know, of whether or not they think you can do it at this level and whatnot. So I'm kind of curious, what do you put into coach recommendations, or is it best to get the kid on campus?
I think both of them play a vital role. I think both of them can help you drastically. I think both of them can lead you astray quickly if you just lean on one or the other. For instance, with a coach's recommendation, no one's going to know a kid for the most part better than his head coach. They're going to see the ups, they're going to see the downs, they're going to see the work ethic, they're going to see the toughness, they're going to see how he handles from a leadership standpoint. They're going to see how he is inside of the school. They're going to see a lot of things that you can't see as a coach when you're recruiting. However, there are also times, being a high school coach myself in the past, that there's some kids that just don't gel well with certain coaches. And because of that, kids can sometimes get a bad rap. But I definitely think the high school head coach's recommendation is a big piece. I think it's something that's got to be important. I think it's if you're talking about to offer somebody before you get a chance to get them on a visit, I wouldn't feel comfortable green lighting a kid for an offer if the head coach didn't give them a glowing recommendation. But I also think getting them on campus is important because not from my end, because I personally think getting them around just us as coaches is no different than what we just said about the high school head coach not gelling, because those kids are coming on a visit because they're wanting to get an offer, or they're wanting to know what the offer is. They're going to be on their best behavior possible. So you're not going to find some of the things that you're trying to find out on one of those visits necessarily. There's questions you can ask, there's things you can do to try to get a better idea of things. But ultimately, I want them around our players because they're going to let their guard down. They're going to be who they are around their teammates. And, I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've had kids on campus that got a green light from the head coach, brought them on campus, spent the night with some of our players, and then I had 3 of our kids come up to me the next morning, don't want them here.
Wow.
Because our kids know who we want and who we don't want, and I rely a lot on them because they're going to find out more sometimes than we are. So that's it. That's the good and the bad about both. I think they both play into it. I think even past that, as a coach, the more you can get around them in camps, getting a chance to see them, game day visits, everything. The more you can get around them, the more the one time of you getting kind of, I don't want to say fooled or bamboozled by a kid, because I don't think that's it. But like from them being able to kind of convince you of something, the more time you get around them, the more their personality is going to come out. The more you're really going to learn who they are. And I think that's probably just as important as anything else. So I think the head coach's thing is important, especially if you're talking about getting ready to throw an offer out in spring recruiting. knowing you can't get a kid on campus yet, but I definitely think getting them on campus ultimately is something that can be very beneficial as well. So sorry, I didn't really answer your question. I'm kind of
Oh, you're good.
I thought you answered it. I thought
Yeah.
it was fine. I mean, really, Coach, what you're talking about is trying to find a kid that you're not just helping for 4 years, you're helping them for the next 40.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's really what it is. And that's what Quincy did for me. JR, you know how I got to Quincy University?
I don't know.
Here you go. A good friend of our family's, his name was Hank Tukowski. He was number 30. He played linebacker at Quincy. Hank came from a very, very poor family. He knew my father. JR, you know my father. He is not one to ever mince words or to not just
I love your dad.
brutally
awesome.
honest with you at any time. Him and Hank knew each other. Hank was quite a bit younger. And Hank came to me one day. He came, watched a high school game and told my dad, he goes, I would like it if you went to Quincy to play. I just got done. And my dad loved Hank so much and trusted him. He then came to me and said, hey, Hank says you should go here and play. I think that's what you should do. Now, my dad didn't play football. He didn't do any of that stuff in high school. He was messing with cars. He didn't play any sports. So he came to me and said, this is what I think you should do. But that's what it was like back in the early 90s. I mean, it was you'd send a VHS tape. I don't know how many tapes coaches had to watch in VHS back then. That must have been brutal.
Thank God I have never had to really deal with that.
Oh, my God. It must have been horrible. Yeah. I didn't send a tape in. I didn't do anything. Hank Tukowski was a former player, went to one of their coaches because he was graduating and said, I think you should go look at this dude. And that's how it happened. That's how it happened.
That happens. It's funny that still happens now. I mean, there's plenty of our kids that have been like, hey, coach, why don't you go look at this kid? And all of a sudden we go look at him and ends up panning out. But to go back on JR's question, kind of one of the most important things probably in recruiting now that kids don't unfortunately understand is social media. You really want to get to know a kid fast, get on their Twitter, Instagram, and all sorts of things, because you may get a glowing recommendation for the coach and they may have fooled him. They may be amazing on campus, but I'm telling you right now, for some reason, these kids do not understand how poor they can be on social media and the things. Like I know just last week we had 3 kids that were early offer kids for us in the spring that we got something on social media that was negative as negative could be in any way, shape, and form, and we decided to go another direction. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times, and same goes for our kids that are on campus, like people don't realize all it takes, man, is for someone to screen grab or whatever it is right now, something you said or did on Twitter, and all of a sudden that is there forever. You are not getting rid of it. And I can't tell you how many kids we have to police on a daily basis, even now, like of what our kids are putting on there. Like, don't be emotional, don't be irrational. Like, always think before, do I want my mom or grandma to read this before you hit in? And if the answer is no, you probably shouldn't post it.
Right.
No.
Right.
It's your own personal press conference, unfortunately. Everybody's got their own personal press conference.
It's no real different than my Twitter or Facebook per se. Like, I don't really get on Twitter and Facebook and I'll put things about my religious beliefs on my personal one because I'm a Christian, and I took 2 of our kids to church here in town today, and that was important for me. But like, you see people get on there and start talking politics all the time and all this other stuff. I'm like, all right, we're just going to sit here and start arguing opinions just to argue opinions. And anybody will stand behind a keyboard and argue with anyone. I'm just like, that's not what that's for. And that's not what my job's for. My job is to better the young men of Quincy University, our football program in this community. And it doesn't matter what my political views are or any of that stuff. And nor should they have to see it on my Twitter account. So
no, it's
kind of interesting how I think social media is a great thing, but a terrible thing at the same time.
Yep.
Oh, 100% agree. The Twittergram, Snapbook,
Slapchat. That's the best one I've come up with. Slapchat. I call it Slapchat. Kids love it when I say that. They start dying. Slap
I'm
chat.
just like, I just tell the kids, I'm like, hey, get off your Twittergram snapbook for a minute and let's figure out what we're doing here. But
I'll tell you a funny one. This one, you're talking about phones. We went up, I think it was a year and a half ago. I walked up to the cafeteria because our offices are below it, and there's a table with probably 15 football players at it. And I look down, and they're all like this. 15 players, all on their phone, not talking to each other.
Yeah.
So I proceeded to walk around the table and take every single one of their phones. Took them all. Headphones, the works, didn't care. And then I looked, what do you, I'm like, talk to each other. So now there's a running thing that anytime we walk into the cafeteria,
everybody
shoving them in their pockets and stuff.
I like it.
Like, hey, look, man, like you got plenty of time to spend on that thing.
Right.
Like converse, communicate, talk to people. Like that is a lost art form. And it is something I think that is unfortunately drastically declining.
Yeah, it is.
I agree.
JR coach has been at our clinic. He talked about God's place and power. Coach Kelly has been there a couple times. We're grateful and thankful for that. And now he's been for about an hour. Tag is the oldest game ever played, Coach. We can argue if there was one other one, but we're not going to mention that. You've been and the goal in tag is to not be it anymore. So here's how this works. If you pick somebody who gets on a secret bucket list that JR and I have that we could talk to, we're going to donate money to your charity and their charity. That's my dog. We're going to donate money to charity. It's about time they just go out and start going crazy. But we've had that happen already. I mean, people have, for heaven's sakes, we were talking to like the assistant head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. How the hell that happened, I have no idea.
Someone picked that?
Yeah. Oh, yes, we
had him on.
Yeah, and not to mention, and JR, and look, I'm not a hockey guy. I know nothing about it. Okay, JR is a hockey freak over here. The guy, when he was on Ian LePerriere, I got it, JR.
You did. Good job.
He told us if he wins the Stanley Cup, we can come to his house and see the trophy. And and JR's like, hey, they won the first round. And I'm like, holy cow, we might be going out to
We're going to Jersey, baby.
Jersey or something. I don't know. But anyway, if your guest happens to get on our list, we're going to donate some money to your charity and their charity. You guys pick a charity together, whatever it may be. So, Tag, you've been it. Who would you like to make it?
Oh, no. All right, this one's going to be easy because I got a feeling in some way, shape, and form, since you're a Quincy alum, he has to get put on this at some point in time.
Okay.
Sean Kelly has been in the thing twice at the Missouri Clinic, and he played DC. He is our DC. He used to coach linebackers. He also, no, I'm just kidding. I was about to say he was the former punter also, but I don't think he was. So I'm going to throw Coach. I had a couple other names, but, we got to keep it in the family.
All right.
We'll take Coach Kelly, absolutely.
We will.
He'll be a lot more articulate than me. I can promise you that much.
Well, listen, I mean, I'm going to ask him what the wattage is of these glowing lights for the jerseys and stuff like that. He better know all that stuff.
He'll know all that stuff. He'll be like, yeah, you had Gary on here. You didn't know any of this stuff, did he? He'll be like, yeah, he goes, who really keeps the ship from sinking? It's me. And he's right.
Oh my goodness.
What's a good question we can ask him? Because I don't think he may not listen to this. So what would be a good one?
But let me see if I can think.
We'll do it off air. We'll do it off air.
No,
we'll do it off air
because I wanted to hear the question.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect.
The one question to ask him, if he really liked wearing Barney purple at McHenry.
Okay. I'll write it down.
That's fair. Said no one ever wanted to do that. I went on one recruiting trip, JR, when I was in high school. I'm not going to name the school because we might get them on sometime. But I went on one, and when I went on it, it was a long ass drive. It was cold when I got there. And I didn't go there, JR, because I could not call myself what their mascot was for the rest of my life. I was like, I can't be that I can't do that. That's not even like in
Missouri.
Huh?
Is it Central Missouri?
No. I told you I'm not giving the name, Coach. Don't ask. So I'll tell you off air, but I was like, I can't do it. I just can't do it because it's not even intimidating. I'm like, where did this name come from? And, so I was like, I can't go here because of that. But
Coach, you've been a lot of places, scouting games. What's the weirdest mascot you've heard of?
The weirdest one I've heard of?
Yeah, or that you've seen.
College or high school?
Either or.
Oh, pick.
Either or.
Oh, there's a ton of them in Illinois. There's a team called the Orphans. Yeah. There's multiple teams called the Pretzels.
Pretzels.
Yeah.
The fighting pretzels.
The Pretzels. There's the Freeport Pretzels, and there's the New Berlin Pretzels.
Wow.
And then
I would move.
Columbia, who's the Cupies?
That's Hickman. Yeah. That's our main
like,
rival. So the Naked Baby.
You ever look at SLU down in St. Louis?
Yeah.
They have that whatever that thing is.
The Billikens.
Sitting in the middle of a football field.
Yeah.
That looks like a baby with big ears. Like I don't.
Yeah.
I thought the most original I've heard of was West Plains.
Was probably Livingstone. They were the Blue Bears.
The Blue Bears.
Blue Bears. Glad they put bears at the end of that, or that could have got really interesting.
Oh God! And then I think there was another one that was the Boll Weevils. Can't remember.
Wow.
It was one of the Arkansas teams, I think.
Just makes you wonder what people who pick those mascots are doing when they're sitting around. Like that, this would be a good idea. Like West Plains is the Zizzers.
A good guess.
The Zizzers.
Yeah, the Zizzers. Which that's the most unique I'd heard until the Blue Bears.
It was.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch there. There's some that are not appropriate. Like when you say their name, you're like, oh, that's not good.
It's like,
right?
hold on a second.
There's one that used to be in the state of Illinois that I'm not going to say out loud.
Yeah.
Pekin High School used to be a racial slur.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And not the one you'd think.
No.
Interesting.
No, it was but here's something even on that line, JR. My high school colors, brown and gold. My college colors, brown and gold.
You need to go to Kickapoo.
Which are not like super common. I mean, they're not super common, but to go there from high school and college, both, crazy. Coach, it's been amazing. Well, we'll connect here off air in a minute, but it's been absolutely outstanding. Quincy University did the right thing. They should have just gave it to you from the start. I think your values are perfectly in line with what the youth needs, and I totally agree with you on a lot of things. Quincy is in great hands, and I can't wait to get back up there and watch y'all play this spring. From
very much for having me.
Process, preparation, performance, he's Simmons. I'm Duke. It's been a great time. St. Francis Solanus Chapel. If you're ever there, it's beautiful. And there's a bakery right across the street that I would highly recommend you check out. Have a great night. Peace.